Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, How to Maximize the Energy Savings of Your Lighting Retrofit Project. Before we get started, I'd like to point out the interactive features of this webinar. You can ask questions throughout the presentation using the Q&A feature in the top right corner. We will address all questions at the end. The presentation will be recorded, and you will receive a follow-up email with a link to the on-demand video and documentation. And now I'd like to introduce Josh Kurtz, our Senior Vice President of Sales.
All right, thanks Amanda, appreciate it. And thank you everyone for joining us today to talk about ROI and maximizing energy savings for your lighting retrofit project. As Amanda said, I'm Josh Kurtz, Senior VP of Sales, and thanks again for joining us today. So why energy savings? The purpose of most lighting retrofit projects out there that I've seen in my 20-year career has been energy savings, save money. The projects out there today, when you're doing retrofit, are based around some sort of ROI. You will have a few projects here and there that are based on, hey, a need for increased light levels. Things change up in a building, I need to increase light levels in an area, may need to reduce light levels in an area. But majority of projects are based on saving money. That's why projects are done. Lighting can account for up to 20% of your building's energy use. I don't think a lot of people understand that, especially in large distribution centers where lighting may be the majority of your electrical load. Doing an energy savings project can have a huge impact on your overall utility bill. When looking at a lighting project, you're typically going to see, from an end user standpoint, you're going to see typically 3 proposals at a minimum out there. A lot of times they'll start with 8, 10, 12 companies bidding on a project, and they'll whittle it down to 3 competitive proposals or energy assessments. So how do you compare those? You got to compare apples to apples and be able to compare with confidence. So we're going to get into that a little bit here today on comparing ROI projects. Sorry for the a little bit of a wordy slide here, but we're covering a lot. So we have the agenda here, and we're going to cover a few things. Starting off with the difference in savings, demand savings, energy savings, and build savings. Then we're going to get into the importance of the savings in evaluating ROI and payback, how to accurately calculate ROI, payback, and what you pay for electricity. I deal with customers on a daily basis, and it still surprises me that most customers will just take for granted what the utility says they pay for a kilowatt hour, and that's what they take it as. Not necessarily the case, so we'll cover that a little bit on how to actually calculate your kilowatt rate. Key questions to consider when performing ROI comparisons. Comparing proposal to proposal, what types of questions should you be asking out there? Other factors that can influence savings that you might have missed when looking at your ROI. A lot of times maintenance savings is overlooked, or maintenance savings is looked at a lower number, or maybe even sometimes a higher number than it should be. So we'll get into that a little bit. And then just a hands-on calculation of how to calculate ROI and payback with some of the higher end performing leading LED high bay products out there to date. All right, let's get into this. The difference between demand savings, energy savings, and actual dollars saved. So 3 ways to calculate energy savings, and this is pretty important when you're doing, especially an Orion project. Orion has historically guaranteed our energy savings over the years. And I cannot tell you how many times I've gotten a phone call from a customer because they've guaranteed energy savings and they may not be seeing the energy savings that was in that proposal for one reason or another. But it's important to look at the energy savings. If they're looking at just dollars saved and you have a kilowatt rate that is changed or not accurately reflected in that original proposal, that's going to change your energy savings. So really digging in and knowing what the energy savings is an important feature when looking at these calculations. So we'll start with demand savings. That's the kW saved, and that's typically expressed in watts saved. You have your existing wattage and your proposed wattage and what is saved. We'll get into a slide next that'll kind of show some comparisons, but typically you look at a 400 watt HID, it's using 458 watts of electricity, you're replacing it with a fixture that's using 106 watts of electricity. That difference is your watts saved or your demand savings. And then you get into the energy savings, the kilowatt hours saved. And that's when you're really looking at the operating hours. Now it's important when you're looking at operating hours to not just say, hey, my operating hours, I'm open 24/7, lights are always on. That's not always the case. One, it could be the offices are not actually open 24/7. They're probably a lot less than maybe the back of the house where you have your high bays. But also if you have any motion control in a facility or daylight control in a facility, you may be open 24/7, but your lights are not going to be on 24/7. So it's really important to dig into what those operating hours are. Then to get to the energy savings, you're going to take your energy usage, it's your demand savings times the operating hours. That's your watts saved per fixture. Say you're saving 200 watts per fixture, you're going to multiply that by your operating hours. That's the energy use in a given period that was billed on a blended rate analysis. Then your operating cost savings. And this is what everyone wants to know, how much money is going to be saved. So you're looking at your blended rate, typically gotten from a utility bill, and again, we'll get into that in a little bit later, times the kWh saved, your actual energy savings. So say you're saving 200 watts per fixture and you have a blended rate of 8.9 cents. You're multiplying that 6,000 hours a year by 0.089 to get your dollar saved. And that'll be on a per fixture basis. Multiply that by how many fixtures you have in your facility, and that's going to give you your operating cost savings. Again, when dealing with customers on a daily basis, the operating cost savings is what everyone dials into. How much money am I saving? Now, the next slide here is an energy calculation on your standard high base out there. Looking at an HID, a fluorescent 6-lamp T8 or 4-lamp T5, and then the LED product that's out there. I fully realize that there's other products out there. There's strip fixtures, there's office fixtures, there's exterior. But for the sake of the conversation today and looking at the ROI, we're gonna zone in on the high bay market here. So you take your typical HID fixture that may be out there, your fixture lumens, your fixture demand, your operating hours, your fixture usage, and then boil it down to the operating cost. So based on operating hours of 6,000 hours for an HID, a kilowatt rate of 8.9 cents, almost 9 cents, and that's an industry average for industrial customers across the U.S. I understand you're going to have higher in certain areas and lower in other areas, but it's a good average to use across the U.S. Your operating cost for a 400 watt HID fixture, be it metal halide or high pressure sodium, is going to be just over $241 per year. Fully understanding a lot of customers have retrofitted to a 6-lamp T8 or a 4-lamp T5. So we're using that comparison here as well. Again, same parameters, 6,000 hours a year, same 8.9 cent kilowatt rate. And you're going to see an operating cost of anywhere from $119 to $123 per fixture annually for the fluorescent technology that's going to be out there. Now we're jumping into the LED, and that's where this world is going, and a lot of you on this webinar today fully understand that and have been selling LEDs. So we've taken a look at it 3 different ways, kind of a premium LED, kind of the standard LED, and then more of the economy LED. Fully realizing that the premium is going to come at a higher cost up front, but ultimately going to save you more money in the long run. So again, using the same parameters, operating hours, same electrical rate, 8.9 cents, 6,000 hours a year, you can see the premium LED out there, high bay, is only going to have an operating cost of $55.84 per year. You jump then into the standard LED, maybe a little bit less lumens per watt, but it's still only operating cost of $62.16 per year. Jump down into the economy, again, maybe a little bit lower, less lumens per watt, but you're still at an operating cost of only $70.06 per year. So you can see a huge savings over the HIDs that are existing, and ultimately even a huge savings over a 6-lamp T8 or a 4-lamp T5 that's going to be existing in your facility. Great savings up front on an annual basis, makes for a great ROI. So how to calculate ROI? Payback and what you pay for electricity to compare proposals. A proposal comparison. And again, this is important because, as I mentioned earlier, as an end user customer, you're going to get more than one proposal to look at. I wish it was as easy as saying, I'm calling Orion, that's all I'm going to look at. But unfortunately, that's not the world we live in. Good end user is going to get competitive proposals. So how do you compare those proposals out there? So each proposal is probably going to have some different energy savings values. And you're going to need to really review them to compare, make sure you're comparing apples to apples out there. So electricity spending and blended electrical rates, what do you pay for your utility for energy? Don't go by what the utility tells you. I'd mentioned that earlier. I talk to customers all day, every day, that they think they're paying one rate, but in reality, their actual blended rate is something completely different than what they're paying. Your return on investment is your operating cost divided by your project cost. How much return for every dollar invested? Then we're going to look at payback period. Project cost divided by operating cost reduction. How many years of energy savings will we need to pay off for the initial project investment? So here's a quick example. And this one is based on what you're paying for a kilowatt rate. So you have 2 proposals. the projected savings of 35,000 kilowatt hours in your facility. One estimate says a savings of $3,500, while the other estimates a saving at $2,800. Which do you choose? And sorry, the examples I'm going to go through may sound a little bit like SAT questions, but it's going to get us where we need to go. So it depends on what you pay for electricity to make that decision. So to calculate your blended rate, you pay $8,000 for 100,000 hours of 100,000 kilowatt hours of electricity. So your blended rate is 8 cents per kWh. $8,000 divided by 100,000 kilowatt hours gives you 8 cents for a kilowatt rate. So you're going to want to choose the proposal that's projecting $2,800 in energy savings, because that's going to give you the accurate energy savings. If someone's out there saying they're going to save $3,500 in energy savings based on this kilowatt rate and these kWh saved, something's funny with the math. It's not accurate. So a great example of why it's so important to really realize what you're paying for your kilowatt rate. A quick example of return on investment. So you have two proposals for your retrofit project. One's going to save you $90,000 while the other's going to save you $70,000. Which project should you choose? Well, it seems pretty easy up front. You would choose the one that's going to save you more money, but not in all cases. And every customer is going to be different. And the quick example we give here will help you hopefully understand that. So it's going to depend on what the cost of the project is. Calculate each project's return on investment. If the first project costs you $300,000 and the second's $200,000, your ROI is 30% on the first and 35% on the second project. Therefore, one should consider choosing the second project, even though the savings are lower, because you get more money savings per dollar invested with that project. So again, looking at not only the energy savings, what the project is going to cost you, how much you're actually saving for your dollars invested is key when looking at your return on investment. Payback period. Again, you have two projects. One's going to cost $75,000, the other's going to cost $50,000. Which one should you choose? Well, it should be pretty simple. I would choose the one that costs me less money. Again, not always the case. Depends on the operating cost savings. So what are you actually saving with these two projects? So let's calculate each project's payback period. If the first project saves you $25,000 and the second only saves you $15,000, your payback period is 36 months on the first project and 40 months on the second project. Again, therefore, one should consider choosing the first project, even though the cost is higher, because you'll be putting the project savings to your bottom line faster. Again, your payback period is going to be quicker because you're saving more money. Energy savings per fixture, you're probably using a higher efficiency fixture. It's going to bring more money to that bottom line quicker. And again, as we go through here, if anyone has any questions at all, please type them in on the box provided, and we'll get to those at the end of the presentation. So key questions when performing your ROI comparisons. So here's just kind of a list of 5 questions that you should really look at to maximize your savings. What facility areas were chosen? When I look at proposals and when customers look at proposals, one proposal may show just the high bays, maybe just strip fixtures, where another proposal may be all-inclusive. It may show strip fixtures, high bays, may show office fixtures. So really dig into what areas are really included on that proposal. What type of technology was proposed? You know, for an example, controls. Were controls proposed in this proposal? Was motion control? Was daylight control, depending on what type of ambient light sources that you have? That's really going to affect the payback as well. And the biggest thing that's going to affect the payback is going to reduce your annual hours of operation. If you have motion control or ambient control, it's really going to reduce your annual hours of operation that those lights are actually on. And having the lights off is going to be the best savings that you can achieve. So again, looking into what technology is on the proposals. Is the project a one-for-one replacement, or is it a complete regrid? Looking at that is going to change a few things. It's going to affect your labor costs for the project. It's going to affect the type of fixture that you use. If you're doing a one-for-one, it may be a lower lumen type fixture to match what's there. If you're doing a regrid of a project, you may use a higher lumen fixture, maybe more upfront cost per fixture, but you're using less fixtures throughout the entire project. Again, so really comparing the different types of projects or the fixtures that are used in that project. Was any additional funding used in the analysis? Great example here is rebates. Did the end user calculate rebates to help their ROI? Some customers I deal with will look at a rebate and they'll kind of subtract that from the capital cost. Others will not. The rebate is really just kind of gravy on top of that. So getting to know your customer, working with the end user to say, okay, I'm taking these rebates, I'm taking these incentives and tying them in to help my ROI. Not only rebates, but any EPACT. Are they looking at EPACT, accelerated tax depreciation? Are they looking at that? Any other tax benefits that are out there that the end user may be using to calculate their ROI? And then is there a corporate standard? What is the standard return on investment for that end user? Is it 3 years? Is it 5 years? And are they looking at a simple ROI for that, or are they doing their own internal rate of return calculation? Because simple ROI and internal rate of return calculation are going to be different. Talk with the end user, see what their requirements are, and see how they calculate that ROI. Excuse me for a second. And then we have the other factors that may influence savings that you might have missed. It's very easy to look at the things that I've talked about, but what are the things out there that we may not always look at? So facility usage, system needs, the existing system age. Is everything up to code? Does new wiring need to be done in the facility? A lot of times people will overlook that and they don't take into consideration that cost until the trigger's already pulled on the project. Budgetary constraints. You may have a higher cost per project, that one example I use, and you're saving more money, but if your budget is only approved at the end user level for $50,000 and your cost is $75,000, it doesn't matter if you're saving more money with the $75,000. That project typically is not going to get approved. The lower cost project will get approved only because of the budgetary constraints that the end user has. So again, important to talk about that with your end user customers. Maintenance savings. The world of LEDs should last forever. Some come with 10-year warranties, some come with 5, some come with somewhere in between there. But it's really important to really look at maintenance savings and what is going to be calced for maintenance savings. Is the customer or are you as a customer going to take maintenance savings into that consideration? I have a lot of customers that do take the maintenance savings in at a very low level. They'll add that in there to their ROI. I have some customers that will take the maintenance savings at a higher level and add it in there. And I have others that won't take maintenance savings at all. I have an example of a customer that has it broken down specifically to say, okay, I have existing fluorescent fixtures. I have one person that I pay $25 an hour to that spends 40 hours a month changing fluorescent tubes. Well, that is a hard data number that you can put to an ROI calculation. So if you have those numbers and you're talking with your customer, talk to them about that maintenance savings and see if you can add that into their to help that ROI. Depreciation implications. I think there's a lot of us on this webinar today that have sold fluorescent high bays in the past replacing HIDs. Count me into that group. Never really ran into depreciation issues. But what we're running into now out there is we're replacing fluorescent technology that may be 5 years old, maybe 3 years old, with new LED high bay products or LED strip fixtures or LED office fixtures. The problem is what we're running into is depreciation implications. The customer end user still has those fluorescent fixtures on their books that they purchased 5, 7, maybe 8 years ago. So getting that conversation started with the customer so they know on the front end, nothing worse than having a great project you think is going to move forward and then in the 11th hour, oh well, these fluorescent fixtures are still on our books for another 8 years. Come talk to us in 8 years when these are off of our books. So having that conversation up front to know what the implications may be. And then cash flow and gross margin. Everyone looks at an ROI and says, I need a 3-year ROI, I need a 2-year ROI. Some customers need a 1-year ROI. But talking with your customer and getting to know maybe what their gross margin is. Say you have a customer that is operating on very low gross margin, and you have a project that's going to bring $1 million to their bottom line in energy savings in the first year. Start talking to that customer and say, okay, how much top line revenue will you have to add to bring $1 million to your bottom line? It's a different way to look at the ROI, a different way to look at the payback, but it'll get you away from that 1 or 2 year conversation on ROI. So a hands-on comparison of the ROI and payback performance of some leading LED high bay products that are on the market today. We're going to start with the premium brand of the Orion Ison product. And for you guys that are familiar with Orion, we have our ISON, we have our Apollo, and we have our Harris product line. And they'll vary in performance up to 179 lumens per watt for the ISON, and we'll drop a little bit as we go to the Apollo and drop a little bit more as we go to the Harris product line. So the first slide here is we're really showing the Orion ISON product versus the other premium brands that are out there. I've chosen 2 premium brands that are out there that compare favorably to the ISON product. You'll see lumen packages are pretty much the same, over 25,000 or close to 25,000 lumens per fixture. But then the lumens per watt is really where it differs with the Orion product. So you have 177 lumens per watt with the ISON product. You have 150 and 130 comparable for the 2 other premium products that are out there. Okay, so what does this mean? I'm lumens per watt. Well, that means it's a more efficient fixture, so you're going to save more money. So the fixture demand, we have it in kW here, 0.144. I'm sorry, 0.144, which is really 144 watts per fixture, or 176 watts and 190 watts comparable. The energy savings, our system cost is $75.60 for the ISON product, $92.72, and just over $100 for the two other premium brands. So your system cost per fixture is much less with the Orion product. So what does that mean? Okay, your energy savings is $165 versus $148 and $141. And I'm comparing this just to a 400 watt replacement. 400 watt HID replacement, operating 6,000 hours a year, and again using that 0.88, 0.89 kilowatt rate. So comparing a project, retrofit project, energy savings is going to be greater with the ISON product. Fixture cost, I've kept the same across the board, $450 just for the use of this webinar, easy math. It may vary a little here and there, but typically these premium products are going to be very comparably priced out there. So $450 across the board, your ROI is 36.8%, 33% for the premium brand and 31% for premium brand A. So what does that mean? Well, your payback with the ISON product is under 3 years. A lot of customers have a requirement, they've got to be under 3 years to pull the trigger on a project. Payback with the ISON, 2.72 years. The other 2 are over a 3-year payback. So again, talking with a customer that wants that high level of performance, wants the best performing product out there, but still requires a payback under 3 years, the Orion is the only product that gets them there right now. This is a Apollo comparison, and I believe we have a couple slides of the Apollo comparison because there's more of kind of that middle of the road LED high bay out there that we can compare the Apollo product to. So again, same comparison we're using here. This is a project looking at replacing HIDs with an LED high bay product. We have the Apollo that's using 152 lumens per watt. It's using 142 watts per fixture. You have the standard brand 1, standard brand 2 that's using 202 watts and 241 watts. You can really see the difference here. We're 152 lumens per watt with the Apollo versus 105 and 103 lumens per watt. So again, what does this mean? Energy savings. Energy savings per fixture on the Apollo is $166 per fixture, $134 and only $114 for the standard brand 1 and brand 2. ROI, this is a very compelling ROI difference here. ROI for the Apollo project is almost 62% versus under 50% ROI for the brand 1 and brand 2. What does that mean in payback? You're under 2 years with the Apollo product. You're at a 1.62 year payback. You're at a 2-year payback with brand 1, and you're at a 2.4 payback almost with brand 2. Again, based on the same assumptions of the 270 watt fixture cost that you can see on there. Same operating hours, same replacement of a 400 watt fixture. Again, getting you to that quicker ROI, faster payback using a more efficient product. Again, just a slide comparing, again, the Apollo out there to some of the other standards that standard LED high bays that you may have out there. Again, 152 lumens per watt, 110 versus 108. And again, the payback period here, 1.62 years versus 1.9 and 2.1 years for the comparable products. Then we get into the Orion, the Harris class of product, which again for Orion is our lowest performing fixture, which is still 152 lumens per watt. So still one of the best in the industry at 152 lumens per watt. We're using 161 watts on the Harris comparison here versus 197 and 204 for the competitive products. System operating cost for the Harris is $84.81. Brand 1, $103. Brand 2, $107. So the energy savings is $156 versus $137 and $133. Same, again, across the board, same fixture cost. You're seeing around $200 per fixture there for the LED high bay. The ROI, 78.2%, 68.7%, and 66.9% for the two standard brands out there, economy brands. So what does that mean? That means quicker payback period. 1.28 years versus 1.45 versus 1.49. So again, almost to a year payback with that Harris product LED high bay. And what I want to stress on these, when you're doing these calculations, the two biggest movers of ROI is not going to be the fixture cost. I deal with so many customers and resellers that say, well, if I can get $5, $10 off, that's going to help my ROI and that's going to get where I need to be. That's not going to move the needle on your return on investment or your payback. What's going to move the needle is the annual operating hours and your kilowatt rate. So if you have a higher operating hours, we're using 6,000 for these slides here. If you have 8,000 hours a year, 8760 a year, we're using 8.8 cents for a kilowatt rate. If you have a 10 cent or 11 cent kilowatt cost, that's really going to move your needle on ROI and payback a lot quicker than $10 or $15 less per product. And that's important to remember when you're looking at these calculations. Just another slide again on the Harris. Again, there's more that fit into this economy brand, standard brand than the premium products out here. Again, same comparison with these different brands. We're at a 1.28 year payback versus 1.42, 1.58, and a 1.3 year payback for our competitors out there. Again, quicker return on investment with a more efficient fixture. So in conclusion, again, very important, we need to do an apples to apples comparison. There are so many times again and again where we may come in as Orion and have a higher energy savings, or I may have a competitor that says they have higher energy savings. But let's really compare those proposals. What are we using for annual hours? What kilowatt rate are we using? Are we using what is accurate? And you'll find with Orion that you're going to get an accurate annuals of operation. You're going to get an accurate kWh rate. So just make sure if you're looking at a competitive proposal that you are comparing those apples to apples. And annual hours. If you have motion sensors in your project, are you reducing the annual hours? I've seen a lot of proposals out there where there's been motion sensors included, but there's no deduction in hours. Well, if you have motion sensors, there's going to be a deduction in hours. So let's take advantage of that additional savings by reducing the existing proposed hours. There's more factors to optimize your energy savings than just the product price. Again, as we stated earlier in our slide, the lowest price doesn't always yield the best ROI. You can have greater energy savings with a more efficient product. But again, dig into that, really see what is the ROI, what's best for the customer. You may have more savings, but if you're exceeding their capital budget, that project's not going to go anywhere. So really take a look, get to know the end user and what requirements they have to get a project to move forward. And again, ROI is important, but it's not the only factor. You need to optimize energy savings. A lot of factors out there that are critical to making a decision for the best retrofit project for your facility or for your customer's facility. So take a look at everything combined, what's going to make the best project for your customer, and what does the customer need? What are they looking at? All those things tied in together is going to get you the best project and move a project forward faster. So now we're to my favorite part of the webinar, and questions. So I'm hoping we have some good questions that were typed in along the way, and I think Amanda's going to let us know here what we have.
All right, Josh, yes, we do have a few questions. The first was, do you have a shared savings program?
Yes, shared savings, we don't really talk about use the term shared savings typically anymore. Financing options is what we like to reference it as. And we do a lot of projects that are financed. With capital tight at a lot of customer sites, if a customer wants to pull the trigger on a project, a lot of customers I deal with, and I know you deal with out there, they have got to save energy on an annual basis. And when I talk with energy managers out there, it's very difficult for them to save energy if they have no money to do a project. So that's where the financing comes in, or the shared savings, Amanda, as the question stated. And we do, every one of our proposals that we put out there, and most of our partners out there, the proposals they put out there, they have a section for a finance option. So yes, we do offer it.
Next, someone would like to know, how do you address the present value versus future value of money, and do you let the CFO give you this value?
So we don't typically present that on the initial proposal. It's something that we'll get into when we're talking to the right audience. And typically if we're talking to the C crowd, the CFO, Amanda has mentioned in the question, we'll work with their finance team to really get into that. Talking with the energy manager, the maintenance manager, and really that kind of that first front or your champion that's in there. We typically just keep it to the simple ROI. And then when we get to talking with the finance team, the C crowd, the CFO crowd, we'll start talking net present value of money.
Were the fixture costs that you used in your examples the selling price? Did they include installation cost?
They were just rough examples. The selling price is going to be not exactly what you saw in there. They'll be different, and they did not include the installation cost.
How do you deal with the material warranty, 5-year versus 10-year warranty? And do you find customers bring this up as an issue? Also, what about labor cost on warranty issues?
Okay, so warranty is a tricky question when it comes to LED. I was actually just having this conversation earlier this morning. So the world that a lot of us come from on the fluorescent side of things, it was very easy if you had a bulb that burnt out, a tube that burnt out, or a ballast that burnt out. You'd send a new tube replacement, they would go up, they'd put it in, new ballast. If a ballast was defective, put a new ballast in. The LED world's a little different. Most of the fixtures that are out there are a lot like TVs. If a set of chips go bad, if a driver goes bad, that whole fixture needs to be replaced. One of the things that Orion has done to separate ourselves is have a modular design. So we have a modular design in the back to get at the drivers. We have modular plates that come out. So you don't have to replace the entire fixture. We can replace it with a new power pack sent out that snaps back into the fixture. We can send it out with a new modular plate that goes in to replace the chips on the front. So you don't have to get rid of the entire fixture. The labor side of things, you have that conversation up front. All warranties are material only. I have not seen a warranty out there that covers labor for the extent of 10 years. There will be some projects where maybe the installer will warranty labor for a year, but I haven't seen it gone out further than a year. So start that conversation with this warranty is for material only. The 10-year versus the 5-year, 10-year is what Orion has on our ISON product, and it's the best in the industry. I have not seen a lot of others go to that 10-year. And when you're having that conversation with the customer, it's kind of tricky because we're out there promoting that LEDs are going to last 100,000 hours plus, but only given a 5-year warranty. But there's so many things that go into it. What type of environment is it in? Is it in a foundry? Is it in a freezer, cold storage? How is the fixture made? They rate chips and they rate drivers, but then you put it into a fixture. So what type of heat sinks do you have on a fixture? What's your rated life from third-party testing? How is your fixture designed? And again, what type of environment is it going into? The 10-year, when we do offer that 10-year, I'll be honest, it seals the deal with a lot of customers. It is a great selling feature to have out there. But the 5-year is pretty much industry standard, and we've sold a lot of projects with that 5-year warranty as well. I hope that answered the question. I don't know who answered it, but if you want any follow-ups, feel free to contact me, and I can certainly walk through it.
Okay. This person is in the warehouse retrofit market. Most hours of operation are 50 hours per week or 2,600 per year. Mm-hmm. He is saying when we add an OCC sensor, it reduces the delta by 50% and brings inferior products into play and pricing. 6,000 hours of operation are needed. What are your thoughts?
Okay. So if I think I understand the question correctly, the example we use of 6,000 hours annually is not 100% accurate in distribution centers. When you're looking at it with HIDs and the comparison we use in here with HIDs, I would say that 6,000 hours is probably accurate because there's typically not a control type system on the HIDs, but I'm not sure who asked the question. But yes, I fully understand if there's a fluorescent solution already in place that has motion sensors, you are correct. The annual hours of operation are going to be far less than 6,000 hours annually. A lot of times what I like to do and how I address that with customers is, okay, your annual hours of operation are extremely low. You're not going to see that ROI that you may need to do this project. So let's take a look at that project and say, okay, at the 3-year mark, you're going to have to relamp every one of these fixtures. So it's a different way to kind of look at the project. It's not based solely on a quick ROI because the annual hours are low, but at the 3-year mark or 4-year mark, you're going to have to spend a lot of money to relamp this entire facility. So let's take a look at doing a project at that annual mark when you've got to relamp. It helps offset that upfront cost of the LEDs that you're going to incur, and then look at a project that way. That's been the best way that I've been able to do a project where I have low operating hours.
Is EPACT in effect this year, 2015 and 2016?
Yes, EPACT is in effect, and actually that's a great lead-in because our next webinar in next month in March will actually be discussing EPACT. So I'll hold off anything on EPACT. I don't want to ruin the next webinar, but in March we're doing a webinar on EPACT. So yes, it is in effect, and customers can take advantage of it. And look for more information on that in the next webinar.
All right, thank you everyone for attending today. We hope the webinar was helpful to you. We will be sending out a follow-up email with the recording and the slides, so please look for that, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.